So without further ado, I'll turn to Mr. Perkins for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, witness. If it wasn't for your ethics and bravery, frankly, over the last 2 years, and tenacity to expose this, we wouldn't be sitting here today in the previous meetings we have. So I think on behalf of everyone and all taxpayers, I thank you for the service you've done and continue to do. One of the areas I'd like to explore is around the former chair, Annette Basharian, and her desire to get money from SDTC to the Basharian Center at Cape Breton University. And I believe in a memo or an email that was written to Jennifer Smith from then VP of Investments, Zayed Rahim, who's now the acting president. He emailed her and said, I quote, Jen, this project is approved for fast track to the VCS, the committee, the analysis committee. Why would something be fast tracked and how would that happen?
In usual cases, we would fast track applications that we clearly could see met all of the requirements for SDTC. I appreciate that you pointed this out because, we've had a lot of board members and executives speak to these issues as simple mistakes of, everything was just, we forgot to recuse ourselves and that was it. But examples like that are what actually proves the intent, because one of the clearest ways to actually show what was happening is the potential of how they were brought into the organization and the preferential treatment that was given to these projects. So for the Basharian Center's application, there's no logic that anyone in the public could believe that this wasn't preferential treatment, because for the ecosystem stream of funding, that wasn't publicly known to anyone. So the public, who should have the ability to apply to something like the ecosystem fund, couldn't apply to it, yet she was getting fast-tracked.
I appreciate that. I've got limited time. Then on January 18th, the same vice president sent a note to someone named Beth saying it was rejected because of conflicts, and saying that we will help find funding from other avenues in government for that project. Did SDTC staff help Annette Basharian find funding for this project and other projects from the government? As an example, $50 million went to Annette Basharian's NR store from Natural Resources and $170 million from the Infrastructure Bank. And on top of that, the Basharian Center got a total of about $6.6 million anyway from ACOA, ISED, and other programs. Were SDTC staff involved in helping her get government money from other departments?
They were, and that's something that SDTC employees aren't supposed to be doing. If an application gets rejected, you reject it and you point them to other organizations, but SDTC employees are not expected to actually go out of their way and spend their own time to actually help an organization get funding. So that was completely out of the realms of their regular day-to-day business, and it happened multiple times, not just the Basharian Center.
So ACOA gave the Basharian Center June 9th, 2022, $2 million, then again gave them another $4.2 million a little later on from ACOA. Then ISED gave the center $1 million, another $1 million, bringing that to about $5.2 million. And then the Basharian Center got another $3.1 million from the ISED department. So it looks like the Basharian Center got over about $10 million itself, and then another $220 million for our other projects from government departments. And she was using ISED or SDTC, the Green Slush Fund staff, to help get her projects money from the government?
Not for all of them. Again, this is just that one situation where after she was rejected, SDTC employees were asked, but you've also missed a couple more million because there's another entity called NGen, which ISED funds, that then indirectly funded the Verschuren Center. And one of the things I'd like to point out is there are almost 3 or 4 different public announcements announcing the Verschuren Center getting funding, and every single one of them announced the same exact project, even though that project and the outcomes of that project have already been completed and funded 3 times over by various federal agencies.
And the Ethics Commissioner found her to have breached the Conflict of Interest Act twice, he said in his report. But in committee this week, it turned out under questioning that he actually said it was 24 times in his, but he didn't have any of these projects in it. So clearly, Annette Verschuren's conflicts with SDTC were way more than 24, as were other directors like Guy Humet, Andre Lise-Matteau, Stephen Kukucher, the list goes on. In fact, the Auditor General identified 9 directors in conflicts that did 186 conflicts out of 226 transactions. Was that your experience, that over 80% of transactions were conflicted with the board directors?
I never did the math, but there wasn't a single project review committee or board approval that didn't have at least 1 or 2 projects that were directly connected to board members. And for the majority of the time, employees weren't actually told about these conflicts. This was all only known at the board level, and you would only find out after the fact, and this is why I mentioned the additional help that was provided at these projects on the front end and the preferential treatment, because for the most part, none of this was known to us, but you can look back at it and say, oh, that was why they got preferential treatment relative to others.
Thank you. That is the time. Ms. Bradford, you have the